Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to do a few things to do with tags and how we're going to be using them in Flame. The video is going to be broken up into 3 parts. In the first one I'm just going to talk a bit about what tags are and why they're important. In the second I'm going to be talking about how we specifically use them within Flame, sort of in theory rather than in practice. And in the third part, I'm going to actually create a faulty entry and show you how we use tags to keep track of those faults and then how to fix them going forward. So thanks for joining me, and I hope that this is helpful to you. The question of what tags are is relatively straightforward. In modern technologies and databases, in online technologies, tags are a way of attaching information to groups of entries of various kinds in order to label them as specific types of entries. Usually the goal is to be able to go back to those entries later and to bring together multiple instances of similar kinds of online or digital objects. It's obviously a holdover from an earlier technological age where physical tags were attached to things like suitcases, etc. But in this case, obviously the tags are digital and they are used to mark particular kinds of digital objects with specific information about the content or type of that object. So there is, of course, the question of how Flame itself uses tags. What would we need tags for? We are interested in the same way as Google or Facebook is in tracking certain kinds of entries among the various entries that we have. Now, the kinds of characteristics that we're tracking are slightly different. So far, we're using tags to track 2 broad kinds of information about entries. The first is on the type of bias that these entries represent. This is something that you won't necessarily need to worry about right now, but this is part of the project's broad ambitions for how we communicate things like use bias and loss bias. More relevant to your case as a contributor will be tracking bugs of various kinds. Now, there are the standard bugs that the system tracks automatically, and those are largely the ones that you may be called on to manage. And these are largely categorized in the following terms. The first is that the system identifies that it is in fact a bug. In this case, this has to do with fines, and it notes that it is a find that lacks groups. And then there are a number of statuses that can apply to fines without groups. In this case, most of them, at least until something has been done with them, will be labeled as pending, which means that they're sitting there waiting for someone to look at them and either find that they are unfixable or that they are fixed. And we'll go through, what these look like concretely in the next section. Okay, so what does this mean concretely? According to this, there are currently no fines without groups. So what we would need to do is create one, which is not hard. Okay, so we go to our list of all coin fines and we add a new one. In this case, we will call it the false hoard, and we will go ahead and provide a dummy location, which happens to be Athens. We will label it as a hoard that is called false, and claim that it was found in 1930. With a start year of 400 and an end year of 500, with 100 coins found and 20 to 40 of them relevant to us. Publication reference of Smith, 1976, which is a false reference. We will go ahead and create that entry. Okay, and as we can see, when we click back into the false hoard, it now actually has a tag attached to it. it finds without groups, and it is pending. So the question then becomes, when you find groups or finds like this, what do we actually do with them? Now, in this case, there's really only one solution, and that is to actually create groups for this find. There is another possibility, which is that there are no groups that can be created for the find, but in that case, the find actually becomes quite useless for the system, because nothing will show up on the map and none of the coins associated with the find will be calculated as part of various searches that users might do. So it is worth, if possible, creating hordes of any kind in order for them to show up in the system. Okay, and what we want to do here is to go ahead and add a coin group. Of course, this is entirely hypothetical, so we are just making up numbers here. Let's say 2 coins from the Mint of Constantinople. It doesn't matter, so 1 1/4 solidus under, say, Theodosius II. So we'll go ahead and simply save that. And as you can see, the group has been created. So let's go back and see what effect this has on our coin finds. Okay, and let's take a look at what the false hoard looks like now that we have implemented a fix. And if we scroll to the bottom, we can see that the tag has actually disappeared. So this no longer will appear among the list of finds that don't have any associated groups. And we can effectively move on and not worry about this hoard anymore. And that's effectively the process by which we fix bugs and work our way through the list of buggy hoards and finds. There are other possibilities, unfortunately. So let's say we had gone through the coin find, in this case through the source, and found that no meaningful coin groups can be created. In that case, there actually are other alternatives, and you could go to bug finds without groups unfixable. Now, this would also remove it from the list of finds that would show up in a search under bug finds without groups pending, but it would also now appear under a list of unfixable groups, and we would know that we shouldn't return to these because there is no fix. So that also would solve the problem for us.